I still remember the sound, not the footsteps, not the door, but the silence afterward. It was the kind of silence that presses against your chest until you realize something inside you has been torn away. That night I had gone to sleep like I always did, trusting the locks, trusting the world, trusting the people I loved. I had lived long enough to believe that danger belonged to other households, other streets, other lives. Mine was simple, quiet, honest. I was wrong. When I woke up, the house felt hollow. The air was colder. The shadows seemed heavier. My bedroom door was slightly open, though I was certain I had closed it. I stepped into the living room, and my heart dropped so fast it felt like falling downstairs. Drawers were pulled out. Cabinets stood open like broken mouths. My old wooden cupboard, the one I had kept locked for years, was wide open. Empty. My hands began to shake as I checked everything. The envelope with my savings gone. The jewelry my late spouse had given me. Pieces I never wore but kept for memory. Gone. Documents gone. Even small things. Cash from a drawer, a watch, a family heirloom vanished. I sat down on the floor because my legs refused to hold me. I wasn't just robbed of money. I was robbed of safety. I was robbed of dignity. I was robbed of the belief that kindness protects you. The police came later. They asked questions, took notes, shook their heads in that practiced way that meant, *, we will try, but don't expect much. *, when they left, the house felt even emptier. I didn't cry right away. Shock has a strange way of numbing pain. What hurt most wasn't the loss, it was the realization that at my age, rebuilding would be almost impossible. That money was meant for emergencies, for health care, for peace. I had saved it slowly, honestly, year after year. And now it was gone in one night. When I called my daughter, she gasped, cried, promised to come over. Her husband, my son-in-law, spoke briefly in the background. His voice sounded concerned but distant, almost rushed. "Don't worry," he said. "Everything will be fine." Something about his tone stayed with me. Not comfort, not warmth, efficiency. Days passed. Then something strange happened. A week after the robbery, I heard the news from someone else. Not from my daughter, not from him. My son-in-law had bought a new house. Not just any house, a big one, fresh paint, gated, modern, and a new car too, shiny, expensive, the kind you notice even from far away. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. * maybe he got a loan. * maybe a promotion. * maybe I'm letting fear poison my thoughts. But deep down, something felt wrong. I had known his financial situation. I had helped them before quietly, generously. He never had savings like that. Never talked about investments, never mentioned sudden success. Yet there he was, smiling beside a house he couldn't have afforded just months ago. And there I was, sitting in a half-empty home, counting losses and wondering how I would survive. When he came to visit, he hugged me awkwardly. Asked how I was. His eyes avoided mine. He spoke too quickly, laughed too loudly, stayed too briefly. Before leaving, he said something that echoed in my mind long after the door closed. "Don't think too much about what's lost," he said. "Life moves on." That was the moment I felt it. Not proof, not certainty, but a crack. A small, quiet crack in my trust. I didn't confront him. I didn't accuse anyone. I smiled, nodded, and wished him well. But that night, alone in my robbed home, I finally cried. Not just for what was taken, but for what I was beginning to understand. Sometimes the thief doesn't come from the dark. Sometimes he sits at your table and calls you family. After the robbery, time stopped meaning what it used to. Days blended into each other, measured not by meals or sleep, but by thoughts I couldn't escape. I cleaned the house slowly, putting drawers back where they belonged, closing doors that had been forced open. Each movement felt symbolic, trying to restore order to a life that no longer trusted itself. What hurt more than the empty cupboards was the way people spoke to me afterward. "Money comes and goes," they said. "At least you're alive. Family will help you." Family, that word echoed differently now. I began thinking about all the times I had helped my daughter and her husband. The first apartment they couldn't afford. The bills they hid from me because they were embarrassed. The small, temporary loans that were never repaid because I never asked. I never asked because I loved them, especially him. I remembered defending my son-in-law when relatives questioned his ambition. I remembered telling myself that his quiet nature meant he was respectful, not secretive, that his carefulness with words meant maturity, not calculation. But memory has a cruel way of changing once doubt is planted. The more I thought, the more pieces stopped fitting. The night of the robbery, there were no broken windows, no forced locks. The police had noted that. Whoever entered knew the house, knew where I kept my valuables, knew the one cupboard I always locked. Only a few people knew that, family. I pushed the thought away, ashamed of myself. How could I even suspect someone so close? I scolded my own heart for turning bitter, for searching for blame when I should have been grateful to be alive. Then the signs grew louder. A neighbor stopped me one afternoon as I was checking the mail. She hesitated before speaking, like someone stepping onto thin ice. I didn't want to say anything, she said carefully, but I saw a car here that night. Late, I recognized it. My breath caught. What kind of car? She described it. It matched his. My hands went numb. She wasn't accusing. She wasn't dramatic. She simply stated what she saw and apologized for getting involved. But her words followed me back inside, heavy and unforgiving. That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed conversations in my mind, his sudden interest in my documents, the questions about where I kept important things, the way he insisted on helping me organize months before the robbery. I had thanked him, I had trusted him. The realization didn't come like a storm. It came like a slow poison. Still, I didn't confront him, not yet. Instead, I watched. I listened more carefully when they spoke. I noticed how defensive he became when the robbery was mentioned, how quickly he changed the subject. I noticed how he avoided being alone with me, how his kindness felt rehearsed, and then there was the money. I quietly checked old records, bank notes, timelines. The dates lined up too perfectly to ignore. The robbery, the purchase, the sudden stability. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was truth knocking gently, waiting for me to open the door. What hurt most wasn't the betrayal, it was the clarity. I had mistaken closeness for loyalty. I had believed that blood, marriage, and shared meals created bonds that couldn't be broken. I was wrong. Blood doesn't always mean family, and family doesn't always mean love. That night, sitting alone with paperwork spread across the table, I made a decision. I wouldn't scream, I wouldn't accuse, I wouldn't beg. If he had taken everything from me, then I would take back the one thing he didn't expect. Control, and for the first time since the robbery, I felt something other than pain. I felt resolve. Revenge doesn't always begin with anger. Mine began with silence. I stopped talking about the robbery. I stopped mentioning what I had lost. When my daughter asked how I was managing, I smiled and said I was fine. When my son-in-law avoided my eyes, I made it easier for him by pretending not to notice. People think revenge is loud. They're wrong. The loud kind is sloppy, emotional, easy to dismiss. I needed mine to be clean. I began by organizing what little I had left. Not just my belongings, but my thoughts. I wrote everything down. Dates, conversations, questions he had asked in the past, things he had touched, things he knew. I didn't accuse, I documented. Truth has weight when it's written. Then I visited places I hadn't planned to visit before. Offices, desks, quiet rooms where people listen instead of interrupting. I asked questions carefully, the way someone genuinely confused would. I shared facts, not feelings. I didn't say his name. I let others connect the dots. It turned out that some of the things taken from me didn't disappear into thin air. Items like mine have histories, serial numbers, paperwork. Trails exist for those who are patient enough to follow them. I was patient. I also made changes closer to home. I updated documents, changed permissions, shifted what little remained into places no one else could touch. I did it calmly, methodically, like closing doors one by one, and I waited. People underestimate waiting. They think doing nothing means weakness, but waiting is powerful when you know something others don't. My son-in-law grew comfortable. His new house became a symbol of success. His new car parked proudly in front of it. He smiled more, laughed louder, spoke about the future like someone who believed it was secure. I watched from a distance. Then slowly, things began to shift. Questions started being asked not by me, but by others. Paperwork needed explaining. Small delays appeared, a call here, a visit there, nothing dramatic at first, just enough to unsettle. I said nothing, I let him feel it. The beauty of truth is that once it's released, you don't have to push it. It moves on its own, it finds cracks, it seeps in. What I had done wasn't cruel, it was precise. I didn't ruin him. I removed the lies holding him up. And in doing so, I felt something unexpected. Relief, not joy, not satisfaction. Relief, because for the first time since that night, I wasn't a victim waiting to be pitied. I was someone who had been wronged, and chose not to stay silent. I didn't need to shout my revenge into the world. I knew it was working the moment he stopped calling, the moment his confidence cracked, the moment the house he built on stolen ground began to sink. And I waited, because I knew the call was coming. The call came early in the morning. I knew it would. I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking tea that had long gone cold, staring at the same wall I had stared at on the morning I realized I'd been robbed. Funny how life circles back like that. Same place, different power. The phone rang. I looked at the screen. His name for a moment, I let it ring, not out of cruelty, but control. I wanted him to feel what I had felt, uncertainty, helplessness, the quiet terror of waiting. When I finally answered, I didn't say hello. I didn't need to. "What have you done?" he screamed. His voice was unrecognizable. Gone was the calm, confident tone he used when he spoke to me before. Gone was the man who told me to move on. What remained was panic, raw and shaking. "What have you done?" he repeated. "I hate you." I held the phone away from my ear until his shouting softened into something else. Crying? Not quiet crying. Not dignified crying. The kind that happens when a carefully built world collapses all at once. They came, he said between breaths. They asked questions. They took things. The house, the car, everything is under review. People are talking. My name is ruined. I closed my eyes. A week ago, my world had been empty drawers and broken trust. Now it was his turn to face emptiness. I spoke calmly, gently. I told the truth. I said, "That's all." He laughed bitterly. "You destroyed me." I didn't raise my voice. "No," I replied. "I survived you." There was silence on the other end. Then anger surged again. "You should have come to me. You should have talked to me like family." Family. The word tasted different now. "You stopped being family the night you took from me." I said, "Not just my money, my safety, my faith in people." His breathing grew heavy. "I needed it," he whispered. "I deserved better. You had enough." That was the moment my heart finally hardened, not with hate, but clarity. "I earned what I had," I said, "and you earned what you're facing now." He began to sob again, begging this time, apologizing, blaming circumstances, blaming pressure, blaming everyone except himself. I listened, not because I forgave him, but because I was done running from the truth. When he finished, I said one last thing. I never wanted revenge. I wanted justice. The difference is, I can sleep at night. Then I hung up. I sat there for a long time afterward, letting the silence return. But this silence was different. It didn't crush my chest. It didn't steal my breath. It felt earned. I didn't get my money back. I didn't get my trust back. But I got something far more valuable. My voice, my strength, my peace. Kindness had made me vulnerable, but wisdom made me free. And if he hated me for that, I could live with it.